How's it, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Howsdis podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We rocking today. Me and Brother Brand with cool brother. We got to check him out at the Alekoko Fishpond the other day. Please give a warm welcome for Brother Peleke Flores, bro. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
thank you.
Yes.
For having me.
Yeah. So, hey, first off, congrats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Congrats on.
Yeah, you just had one baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, what was it, the other morning?
Yeah.
He calls me like, oh, we got to cancel. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, yeah, he just had one baby. I was like, oh, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good reason for cancel.
I like his text response. Like, out of all the excuses.
Yeah.
I started bust laughing. Like,
Yeah, I was like, of all the excuses, that is the craziest one I ever heard.
Yeah. I know.
We was going back and forth, me and Brian. We were like, Brad, do we just text him like, hey, if you never like come, you can just say that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just joking around, but yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, but congrats.
Yeah, congrats.
And
And
then you were here 2 days later. I was like, oh, he's coming. I was like, oh, shoots.
yeah, I had to be for my other kids that they go in Kauai. So I was like, okay, I'll be in the space.
yeah.
Still narrow time, but can fit them in solid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, perfect. No, thank you. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, for real.
We appreciate it.
I know we were talking-
He's some busy guy.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of the stuff that you're already doing, you know what I mean, down at Alekoko, you know, we was just talking when you guys first came in, and you guys are in the middle of a move too, from the west, from Waimea.
Oh, you're moving house too?
Yeah, we just moved in Kamokani. So that was solid. So it's kind of nesting, knowing that
Yeah.
we're going to give birth to. So trying to get everything is, we're not
Settle down.
unloaded yet, but enough to be comfortable enough for her.
Nice.
Because she was home birth too. So
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
That is, yeah.
Number 6.
Wait, which home? Oh, wow. Waimea or Kamakani?
She gave birth in Kamokani. Yeah.
Kamokani.
Wow.
So right when we moved in, just had to settle in whatever way we can, and then
Not even plant tea leaf first, because it's just straight home bird, you know?
the tea leaves still stay in the bucket.
With the Hawaiian shower. Oh, mean.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. You just surf the kind every day.
Pakala.
Yeah.
Oof, you can miss me with that one.
Nah, it's the best way. What you talking about?
I never, yeah, but that best water, that chocolate
Yeah,
factory.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
We've been more Waimea River mouth action, but still same water.
Same water.
Yeah. Oh,
Same
yeah,
color,
yeah,
same
yeah.
color.
Yeah, perfect.
Actually, it's a little bit more brown that side than the Waimea.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that's good. It keeps people away.
Oh, yeah.
That's the good part. Yeah, you don't need come.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
super
trust me.
brown Waimea River mouth. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, I will never come. I know you've been to Pakala's,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to be there. Not mean.
Well, yeah, welcome. But we were doing a project with Kavaikini for like filming, and then had a bunch of the kids. This is kind of like a pilot project we were working with Fujifilm on, and then that's kind of how we ended up at your guys' place, yeah, because the kids wanted to. They picked a nonprofit and they picked your place, or some of them picked your place to do their project, and then honestly, that was the first time I knew you guys were doing stuff. But honestly, I didn't even know how to get there. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're like, oh, we're going to go film. I was like, okay, but
Well-
I got to follow you.
Well, before, Peleke, can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about like what you do, where it is that we're talking about, and kind of just the significance, and just, you know, kind of just a rundown on what we're talking about.
Yeah. So currently I'm working for a nonprofit organization called Mālama Hulēia, 501c3. And the main mission is to remove all the mangrove from Hulēia River. So started grassroots with some canoe paddlers at Kaiola Canoe Club about 12 years ago-ish. And then
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's all good.
press X. Only get that one. Sorry, that's all I had to keep them busy.
No,
No,
you're
it's
all
all G.
good. Minor.
Let me see. But yeah,
Kawowo, yeah?
Kawowo.
Kawowo.
Yeah.
Rocking with Dad today on the podcast. Yee!
Oh, you're a way higher level than me.
Well, yeah, so the movement started with some paddlers that's been paddling it up Hulēia stream for long enough where they noticed that some of the mangrove where they could turn 3, maybe 4 canoes in one spot. Now they could barely turn 2. So they realized that the mangrove has been closing in on that river. And yeah, they ended up hearing that there were movements outside of Kauai on Oahu and Molokai getting grants to remove mangrove too. So they did a little bit study on them, and they tried grassroots just with the canoe club right by Niumalu Pavilion just to remove about 3 acres worth of mangrove there, just under 4. Press X.
So they did. So Niumalu Pavilion is cleared out.
Yeah. So right in the front by the pavilion used to be like, I wish I had pictures. We had pictures online, but never can hear them that clear.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
But
Easy.
yeah, so that was the pilot program just for start. Some of the people was thinking, the guys who started was kind of crazy because there was a lot of mangrove and work for do. But ended up pushing through, and they realized that not so much people would show up in the beginning, so they formed a nonprofit to kind of have bigger reach, to get grants, to get more resources in to remove. Because when they did the overview layout, the Google map was about 70 acres worth of mangrove to remove. Yeah, and that just under 4 acres was the first start.
Wow.
So they knew it was going to be a big taking on the kind. Hey, Elio. Don't keep this stuff.
That Candy Crush.
Royal match. I don't know what you did. Sorry, guys.
No.
Oh, gee.
It's all right. Don't buy too much lives, though. One time, my nephew went on my phone. He's playing like Star Wars or something. Bro, the kid would buy like $300 worth of stuff. I was like, what you doing?
That is dirty lickings that I would get.
That's what happens when you get like on your like Apple thing, like auto sign in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
You sleep, all you need is a finger touch.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what you doing? You can't do that.
So when they formed the nonprofit, the main mission was to remove all the red mangrove in Hulēia estuary. And then as we go through the estuary, we knew already Alekoko Fishpond was one of the spaces, like the traditional spaces in that movement to remove mangrove, and that held about 26 acres of mangrove. That was like a good chunk under one owner, because a lot of different owners kind of butt up to the river, so have to like get clearance from everybody in order to remove, which technically the mangrove grows to the high water mark, so it's kind of like within the river estuary anyways.
Okay.
Just to be good neighbors and kind of educate everybody about mangrove, because the rest of the world is trying to, save mangrove or replant mangrove.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're about the 2% of the world that is trying to remove mangrove from our areas, especially like in Hawaii, because it attacks our rivers and especially our fish ponds.
So how come people are trying to save them or protect them?
In other places, they use them for like combating sea level rise, building more land. Mangrove builds land, especially when it's introduced to a space that is not native, where it's not native from, it builds land way faster.
Yeah.
Bro, that's right. When we went down, when we went down to your guys, to Alekoko, you can see
The mud flats.
Yeah, you can see just how the roots and stuff like that, when it's almost hard, like rock.
But in places like Florida and stuff like that, they like want that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where this mangrove came from, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, red mangrove. So I was watching Netflix stuff one time, and it showed, it was like something money crops or something, but ended up sugarcane. It was about sugarcane, but it had nothing to do with mangrove. But within that sugarcane movement, when it talked a little bit of Hawaii, it showed Florida, and it kind of, like for me, it connected dots for mangrove. Like the plantation managers here, most of them came from Florida too. So it's like they took that seeds from Florida and dropped it from the airplanes on Molokai and Oahu first to help stop erosion, because it was clearing land so fast that, especially on the windward side, the rainy sides, it was causing erosion down to the ocean.
It was dropping seeds.
Yeah, so literally, I got to meet a couple of descendants, or one descendant from when I was at Oahu at Heiea Fish Pond, that their kupuna was one of the ones that dropped seedlings out of the plane on the shoreline to help stop erosion.
Well, I was kind of tripping too, because like when we went to your guys' place, they was explaining to me like, oh no, they dropped like that and like Halicore, right? They dropped like seeds.
Oh, I never heard the Halicore.
Yeah. Because they wanted like, I guess it's like a nitrogen fixer or whatever Halicore, but like,
once it's there,
the thing not fixing that. Like,
yeah,
I get plenty in my yard.
And then we were trying to push like, because it took a while to help prove that mangrove wasn't good for our environment. Especially on Oahu, it had some good studies, because when you Google them, like 15, 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, 20 now, shucks. A lot of good things about mangrove would pop up, but where it's from, but no more place-based data about mangrove and how it affects in Hawaii.
So there's other places.
So there's a lot more data now. Like people have been doing their dissertations or thesis on mangrove and the way it reacts in Hawaii from the microscopic level up, and then the way it's really bad for our springs, our rivers, our fish ponds, like all those brackish water estuaries, where for us in Hawaii, a lot of our major parts for the fish system strive from too, right? Like our ahupua system, or like the productive parts. That's where the mangrove grow best, but it just starts clogging the arteries up, and it took us a little bit over 100 years to figure that out. For like, hey, this thing is not good.
Yeah.
For Kauai, it wasn't introduced like it was on Oahu and Molokai. They kind of said it was introduced more on accident from the harbor.
I see.
So the research we was doing here at the Historic Society and just kind of looking around a mangrove, he had a recording from a man named Hobie Goodell, and he talked about, he believes he saw the first mangrove in Wili Wili Harbor, but he never knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was.
Oh, wow.
He had a na'au feeling for hukium, but it wasn't that big, and he's like, I don't know that plant, and left him, and about 10, 15 years later, he was like, I should have pulled that one plant.
Crazy.
They believe it might have came off of the boat. So two ways. It could have went on the channel as the boats go back and forth, but also when they load up in Oahu, as they load up, they believe the mangrove might have went on the dock of the ship, and then when they come and unload and then shoot off the dock, then the thing come out the gata and land inside our harbor over here, and then was on perfect incubator for the thing just blow up.
Because I think it's pretty far upriver, no?
Yeah. It was about 1.5 miles from where we're at the fish pond.
That far up.
Yeah. If you paddle all the way up, you can see where it starts to slow down. Then you start turning into Howbush, and where the river starting to turn a little bit into rapid.
Yeah.
So you'll see the different color change because it'll float with the high tide. So the high tide watermark is way inside there, and you'll see the color change, like green, and then gonna be like that murky where you see the fresh and the salt coming, and it's gonna turn clear. But you'll see, like, if you look at the tree line, it follows that water movement.
I see.
No more this one. This is power ready. Go watch. Yeah. Go watch any kind of.
Okay. Go watch any kind.
What you usually watch?
Huh? Anything.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're
No
good.
worries. No, but so yeah, it's all G. No worry. This is we can edit all this stuff, so we good.
Easy.
But what I want people for those of you tuning in, for those of you who know, we're talking about Menehune Fish Pond and what Peleke guys have done, and him and his team, unreal. Try go look from the lookout and look at, where Alekoko Fishpond is, and look across the stream too. That for me, like seeing the before and after pictures. Who would show us? Was it Niho? Trevor brought it out, yeah?
Shoot. No, not Trevor.
Because when we were leaving, someone had laid it
Who's
out.
the brother from Waimea?
From Waimea.
Punohu, Jason, and Kaniho.
No. The one that was doing the film class. I think
in the
he
film
worked
class.
with you guys before.
Oh, Chris.
Chris, yeah, Chris.
Brother Chris.
Yeah, Chris did
I
bring him out.
copy.
He wanted to show us. Yeah, he wanted to show us. But he brought out the pictures, like a photo of the
Oh,
pictures.
nice. Let's get to check it
Yeah,
out.
so I mean,
Wow.
that was trippy. And then even like when we walked there, right? Those roots are mega. So you're like, it's hard not having like walked through there when it was still existing, and what it is now. And then from those pictures, you're like, oh, those are like huge trees, and the width and how much it took up was mega.
And
You know, which is crazy.
And the way they grow, so it's weird. Yeah, you mean these roots are like above the ground. You know what I mean? And like
The tree is above the ground. Too.
yeah.
Almost like hollow trees.
yeah.
The way hollow trees grow.
Yeah, but then they start from that little like seedling,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, that's it, and then they turn into these like monsters.
You seen the big machine down there,
Yep.
that excavator?
Yeah.
That was like that's the machine, like half of most of those tree heights.
Oh,
Which is crazy. So I mean, people like that's like, I mean, what is that like 50 feet? The things 40 feet, something like that. Yeah, like that's how big those things would have been, like mega
could-
tall.
Just barely see the tops of the ironwood trees that's down there.
Yeah.
which is crazy.
And those trees are tall.
And yeah, those little shrubs or whatever you guys call them. You know what I mean? Floating on the, you could see them on like the shoreline and stuff like that. I never knew that that's what it was.
Yeah.
Until we went down the first day and Kupu was pulling them. I said, "Hey, that's the freaking
See them
thing."
at other
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing good that when we get schools down or just community in general to educate about mangrove
Yeah.
and Howsdisguy, and if you like your beach, like, and you see these seedlings floating around or your nice river mouth area or whatever, like, gotta break these guys and throw them up.
Away, yeah.
As long as it's high and dry, they'll die and shrivel out. But once they're wet, they can stay dormant for like 2 years, just floating. And then once they attach it, like, they'll start growing.
What?
Yeah, so it's been slowly, pretty much all the population that's around this island has been starting from Willy.
Oh.
Yeah, so it just goes out on a flood tide or whatever, and then once it attach one side, then it's all down to Kapa'a.
So where else get on Kauai right now?
Shucks, if I start from the west side, I think the earliest I've seen was in Hanapepe River.
Okay.
There's a few in there. Like, get chance for stop them now.
Yeah.
I don't think people really know about them, but the guys who know about them might still think it's super good for the place, which
Yeah.
pretty soon that river gonna get shut
Clogged
down.
up, yeah.
Clogged up. And the people living right next to them gonna be in mosquito havens. 'cause
Oh.
They hold a lot of mosquitoes too. And then rubbish. That's why they build land so fast. And then, I don't know about any other rivers. Not really much, but then comes into no Willy.
Yeah,
I think some shoreline has, and you'll see on the shoreline going by KBR.
Yes.
So like that part, and then goes all the way down as far as I saw to Kapa'a by the library.
Yep.
Get that
Oh.
one stream going all the way up.
Oh,
that
that
bug
one.
is going up far, but
Oh, that is mangrove over there.
by the
Bypass.
By
By the park, yeah.
By the roundabout.
Yeah, because I used to go dig bottles right actually right there on the bridge by the main road, not the bypass road, on the roofing supply side. You can dig under there and then but actually now that I think of it, I was digging all in mangroves.
Yeah.
I should have been pulling. Well, good thing I was digging under them.
Yeah,
See?
he's digging it.
Dig-
So yeah, that one I was surprised how it was a small stream, so not too surprising, but that one is pretty far up.
Oh, but
that's gonna clog fast.
But so like if you even go from there up to that bridge by the bypass, that thing is clogged actually already. The thing is shut pretty much.
But the thing is, most people don't know about it, yeah?
Because majority of it is like trying to save mangrove around the places, and they put them with the environmental stuff of like sea level rise and
And then just like how they like save the mongoose. Oh, you guys know what y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
like when I was working on Oahu at Heiea Fish Pond, we got gonged by a group. I'm not gonna mention the name, but
What do
they
you mean?
put
You
us on
got
the news.
oh
Yeah, they put us on the news saying, "Oh, they're cutting the native forest down and attacking or messing up the environment for the native species." And I was like, "Okay, if you to Google that time, that's exactly what it says mangrove." But if you actually go and walk in there, it's like you don't see any of our native fish, any of our native plants. It's like all mud flats. And,
wow.
you know, like the water rarely goes into the mangrove area unless it's a high tide. So even then, like one of the girls, I don't know her last name, Megzi, she did a study at UH Manoa, and she asked how she could help the fish pond community with information, like what do we need? And that was the exact time we were getting gongs. So I was like, man, if you can prove scientifically that, back up our words that mangrove ain't good for this space, then that's going to be a huge help. And she did. She went from the microscopic level up, and it showed like the reason why mangrove is so aggressive here is because no more any, what is that called? Predators against it from the microscopic level up. So like when the biomatter fall, nothing's really eating their stuff. So it just keep compiling. None of our native fishes swim or like live in that environment like Florida. Florida's a like reef system. It's super, like I seen pictures, I've never been there, but I met guys from Florida that talk about fishing in the mangrove. But when they looked at ours, they were surprised, like, wow, we never seen mangrove this thick. You can't even walk through it.
Yeah.
You got to climb and just, you be above the ground for a long time, wherever the mangrove touch. You can just hop tree to tree.
Well, that's the thing about Hawaii. It's like kind of a unique place where these random things brought in, they kind of go off. Like the most recent one is probably like Howsdis, right? Oh. Where like they bring them in for whatever reason, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, right? They bring it in from Africa thinking you can use it for biomass, but then the thing grows too fast, so the thing doesn't get dense and it doesn't burn.
Too wet, yeah.
And
so
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It falls. It grows like faster than it can support itself.
You seen Wailua back roads? The one where you go from Wailua, the fork, Kapaa Middle School down.
Yeah.
Was that Lipo or something? They had to chop because those things, every time it storms, like a little bit wind, bro, that thing's coming through your, right over the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in 10 years, those things are massive.
Yeah.
Like uncontrollably massive.
Yeah.
That's the gnarly part.
We kind of relate them with people, yeah. A lot of the time, like even the kupuna would relate plants or something fish to the people. And it's like, yeah, plants, you get your good ones, the respectful ones, the tropical plants, they'll come into your space, but they'll be nice and neat. But then you get like the ragers when you go off college and you away from home and you start raging your party doing any kind of stupid stuff that you wouldn't do at home.
Yeah.
That's what the plants do too. They're just raging and getting out of control.
Yeah, we went into Milili'i with Kavaikini, with the Kavaikini team.
Oh, nice.
Kanani Dam, and we're yanking lantana.
Oh.
Hey. And I like, I've seen Milili'i how much times from the boat. You go in there, a different story. Like, I never even knew the difference between what was invasive, what wasn't native, and stuff like that. But it's unreal when you yank, like, sections of them out, and then the only thing get left is a native plant, but only had two types. I forget the names.
Ayo.
Yeah. Yes.
What, in the back by the grave?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? But now, like, having done that, and then we went to KA, and we seen how they kind of restored that Ahupua'a system from, like, Limahuli down to the ocean. It's unreal. It's so beautiful,
Yeah. And it's
More-
so different, too.
Yeah.
More functional.
Yeah.
It's like you can use everything you get around you. Like, we're not like that now as much as was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But to know that it's available and to keep using them, then that's how the place stay alive. If not, it's just a bush.
Yeah.
And most people just look like, oh, green, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, so
go run
lush.
through that lantana over there.
Yeah. The garden aisle. You mean, should I go walk through that garden?
Come on, scratch up.
Bro, Kanani's so freaking funny. Because lantana, I'm like, okay, like, we pulling weeds, like, whatever. Hi, I come over there, short sleeve shirt, shorts, slippers. They're like, you not even gonna last 5 minutes. I'm like, what's the big deal? Bro, look at everybody else. They're just gloved up. They got, shoes on.
You never did go to Lantana before? Up being like cocaine like that?
Well, now that I think of it, we have lantana all through our pasture, but I never
Oh,
knew
no,
what
your
it
dad
was.
just told me, I cleaned Lantana the other day. Like,
Yeah.
out your guys' yard.
And you know why? Because I came home from that camping trip. I pulled my car up. I was looking in my yard. I said, holy shit. That's the biggest lantana. No, literally. And my dad, bro, the lantana, the freaking stump was huge. So, and we was pulling Middle East, so it's in the sand. So I went over there. Like one dummy. I freaking grab him. And I just wanted to see how tight the thing cut on my hand.
Oh, rip that.
I go by my dad. I said, Dad, what you guys doing planting that lantana? He said, son, it's been there. It's just getting out of control. I said, you need to pull that. Like, now we need to, like, pull this out. So
solid, though. At least make that connection.
Yeah, and then now if you go just removing that big-ass lantana, oh, my goodness, you can see the plumeria can breathe. You know what I mean? It's so nice now.
You get that smell, though. You can tell, like it's a nice smell. Like, but then I can tell, like, oh, shots get lantana around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pulling them.
Like cocaine, we used to get blasted all the time.
Oh, I bet.
Or the blackberry.
Yeah, the blackberry,
Oh.
lantana, all that stuff. You're going through the
Cat
bushes.
claw.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing will rip you up, yeah. It's like, oh, that's why up there. Like if you're looking like for Miley or something.
So what was there besides the hala, was there a lot of native stuff that could rip you up before?
Not really. They said we hardly had any thorned plants. I know some of the wheelie wheelie nowadays, you look at them, get thorns on them, but I'm not sure because I've seen wheelie wheelie without thorns and I've seen wheelie wheelie with thorns. So I'm not sure like how endemic which one is over the other.
Yeah.
I heard about nohu. Nohu is the fish nohu, the rockfish,
Yeah.
red rockfish.
Yeah.
So every time you get on plant or get on fish version and get on plant version, and get on plant version of that stuff, and that is the cowton. But I never know cowton was the kind, the one that bust up your bike tire every time you're riding in the dirt roads or whatever. But for us on the west side, we always do bust up our tire riding on the river mouth and the river bank. But it's these crazy gnarly thorns, like 2-horned thorns, but they bust up your tire like Keawe. Shorter though than Keawe, but they say that is on flat weed or ground cover, but that one get torn, and that is like the land version of that nohu fish. Yeah, because can step on that bugger too.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Die.
But other than that, yeah, like hala was the only other pokey that we knew of. But I know I'm food plant expert too, so might have something else out there.
Yeah.
But from what I heard from my friends, it's like, yeah, we never have too much things that can bust you up.
Well, because it's kind of interesting too, yeah. Like, because we were up in Hawaiian too, but like even like Ironwood, like Invasive, and like he was like, oh no, this stuff was all like almost like Polar Hollywood, like the big banks, right? Like lots of burials, lots of stuff, but right in the sand, right, close to the ocean, or closer to the ocean. But then he's like, oh yeah, I never had these like ironwoods before, so it was like sandbanks, was like that, and then. My grandma guys is from that side. They used to take care of their family used to take care of the powerhouse back in the day. But my dad used to tell me stories of, like, she would say that they could climb, like, through the lava tubes all the way to the top. Like, and I was like, for real? Like, how, like...
Yeah, like...
From Nepali.
In Hyannis side.
In Hyannis.
Yeah, so, like, to the caves.
Yeah.
Like, I guess but I'm like, how you get to that? And, like, are those, like, even still there? Like, or are they all, like, clogged up? Are they all grown through? You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, it's kind of trippy.
I get more of that from my ohana too, like from the canyon, Waimea Canyon, or ohana says we originate from the Menehune, the Moo time. But
Oh, wow.
used to have the one cave that connect the ohanas from inside the canyon to the Nepali side. And that's where we get the fish from, and like travel through instead of going all the way up and around.
Yeah.
But somehow that went close up too.
See, that's the thing.
Close up, I don't know what the kind.
Yeah.
Like,
Dynamite those freakers.
Nice.
But like, no, it's kind of trippy though. But then you start to think about it, yeah, and you look at that whole like cliffside, and you're like, oh, that's all ironwood now. You look at all that, that's all buffalo grass. You're like, oh,
Alekoko.
when they talk about like, oh, peely grass used to be like this. You're like, okay, but you don't hardly see them too much anymore because they get choked out, yeah. So it's like, oh, you take away the buffalo grass, the Guinea grass.
You guys notice Star Hill when you come in by the gate? It was all peely grass.
Oh yeah, all peely grass.
Yeah.
And then you guys got that like that zone, yeah, closer to on the other side of the fish pond.
The
where
Punavai
you guys
side.
said planting. I was like, oh yeah, peely grass. You guys get all kind of native stuff over there.
Yeah.
So I mean that stuff is. I mean I like that stuff. Like I like the idea of like kind of. I mean because you almost got to kind of defend them, yeah. Where it's like, oh, you gotta like kind of kill that other stuff, and then once
Just
they
start
do,
'em
they
off.
they start building like stronger like reserves.
You can tell the spots that started to take care of each other
Yeah.
now. Like, and then it's like nice. You can actually go sit down over there and not have to worry about getting all
Yeah.
buffalo grassed out or
Yeah.
No, exactly. So I mean, it's just those things you're trying to figure out. Like, what was it like? What kind of things like have people done where it's like kind of messed stuff up a little bit? Like, for whatever reason, at this point, you're just dealing with the consequence, right? So it's like, what do you do now?
That's part of what we're trying to do too down there. Like we go, we're training about mangrove, but then now because the phase we're in the fish pond, but we're working upstream too, going past the bird sanctuary, but was all tar patches before.
Yeah.
But built a online curriculum that we're testing out with the students or the teachers, and within one of the units, it kind of brings us way back to like at least the 1700s.
Oh.
And then more like landscape kind of stuff, because you can kind of, I guess it goes with the industries, like what kind of industries had. What you guys know about what was our first industry we fully had, our first trade we had?
Like old school
Yeah, from the 1700s.
Iliahi.
sandalwood. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the Iliahi trade, yeah. So like that one, that was during our kingdom era, yeah. So like King Kamehameha was
Yeah.
running through all of that, and then other Ali'is and other island. But that was also one pretty shitty time for our people within that
How
industry
come?
too, because like it was like harvesting nonstop.
Oh, it's kind of nuts, yeah. Because we was talking about with Chucky Boy, like how because they used it for trade, right? They're talking about like how, like especially like Kalepo, like that place would just choke.
Yeah. So like all our mountains was forested, not just Iliahi, but had mix, yeah.
Wow.
But they would, like I think Molokai or was it Big Island, still has like the place where they carved the shape of the hull of the ship, and they would load that puka up so they know when they were full, and then they would carry that down the mountain.
Holy
The
crap.
guys are still working in Malo that time, and you stay up in the mountains, like it's cold and kind of. They talk about guys dying and actually had sabotage too. So like plenty of the kupuna went burned the forest on purpose. So they was finding the burnt Iliahi, but doing that, they never just burned the Iliahi, they burned everything else that was there. But they was doing them again so that they could kill the industry too. So one, there was like over demand from Asia or wherever else, and then two is like the people already knew that this was junk work for the people.
Yeah.
So you get spurts of stories saying they sabotaged the industry because they never let the next generation do that work too. You know, so
Yeah.
So right there, the Iliahi trade fall, but then that was the start of our freshwater systems being affected.
Yeah.
So now all the forests pooling that water, recharging all our springs and everything within that 1700s was that time it started to get affected because all our big forests started to get burnt down or cut down. And then what was the next industry after that? Or I guess it was a gift first. And then it
Gift.
turned into an industry.
Well, I mean,
Horse. Paniolo.
To the point, so they gave cows.
Cows, yeah.
So the cows came as gifts, but then they put on kapu and then they'd fully multiply.
Yeah.
So any new forested stuff popping up, the cows were whacking
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And then came overbearing where it's like, okay, now we got to send in the vaqueros to help train the
What is that? Vaqueros.
Cowboys, the
Oh,
cowboys.
okay,
the
okay.
true cowboys,
Yeah.
the first cowboys. They're the cowboys before the cowboys of the
Yeah.
Western cowboys, yeah. And then, so if you look at vaquero culture one too, that's mean because they went all over the world. And
Yeah.
the vaqueros, the buckaroos, the paniolos, all these these places that have that kind of name with their cowboy was like that culture mixed with vaquero culture to make that cowboy kind of stuff. So
Mental.
Hawaii was the paniolo one. But yeah, so that built up to help control that population, but that already had cleared out even more any new growths had. So now we're going for the next 100 years. So that's like 200 years of getting slammed. And then the shift of our just started, well, not really the shift yet. The next industry after that, the sugarcane. So now all these places is clear.
Yeah.
The effect of water is already going down. So now all these irrigation ditch now you got to start bringing water into places that is named after water. Why
Like
now?
Waimea, yeah.
You know, like why not? You know, like all these other white places, or it was known tradition. Mana was we
Was
talk
like-
about it's hot, but that was a big fish pond over there. That was a big wetland.
What?
And it was productive. But
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it before, but like how it was kind of like these channels almost, yeah?
Yeah.
Like this, like, I mean, because there's like a little section, if you go out there, that's still kind of like that, right? Where you
Yes.
get the check, I mean, super small, but that was supposedly like how the whole thing was.
yeah, you could paddle a canoe from Waimea Canyon, basically, Waimea Canyon School, all the way to Polehale and that back, the right side of the highway.
That
That's
is
how
the
big water was.
craziest thing I ever heard for anyone that can hear this and know what we're talking about.
You can see there's still some old pictures of when that place was still water, big springs that get all capped over there, the diversions divert the water so it kind of dries that out all for plantation period now.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so now that diversion of water starts happening and starts diminishing pieces. I mean, the population going down due to sicknesses and whatever pandemics at that time, and then the land's getting swapped, the kingdom getting shifted over. It's all the 1800s already, and then after that, plantation went down within our generation,
Yeah.
the 1900s, and then that's when the boom of, still get GMO ag kind of stuff, and tourism start booming. So all of these stuff still affecting the aina and how, we have to push back to the center to try and replenish those spots and getting views of the places like Ke'e and like all these other spots that show the little kipukas, like how one productive system can be not just because it looks good, but also because the water the water helps populate everything down and functions all the way to our ocean, because this ocean wasn't just our ice box. The land was our cabinet. Our cabinet up there, you get the ice box inside, but all of them had to function together in order to stay productive. But the landscapes pushing now is not really helping us be able to survive off the land. We got to be reliant on the system to be able to keep on going. It's kind of backwards.
No, 100%. Well, I mean, even if guys is looking at it from like a big outlook, it's still like way more productive, right? So even guys who say like, oh, money this, money that, they can still come in and you can like justifiably say, oh no, there's money in food, there's money in this, right? Like in like being able to be self-sufficient and being able not to have to, like the amount, like when I order stuff for business and ship it, a lot of times the shipping is the same as whatever the thing it costs. You know, like, so even on that, like food is the same. You know, like you're going to bring in all this stuff from Costco or whatever, but like legitimately, even if you just said buy them from here and never ship them, like how much better of a situation is that? And as you can scale in a sustainable way, like how much better is that? You know, and that's the interesting thing as we figure stuff out, you know, and then there's modern tools, whether it's machinery or whatever, that can help actually like make it way more profitable, or just, I don't even want to say profitable, just like sustainable. Yeah. And that's the big thing, is like something that can help people like live here and do the thing. And just because like you're looking around the country, and I think the pandemic was like a good wake up call, because then you start to realize like, oh, you might not be able to get that. Like I get on a restaurant and we use like chicken bones. Right, there was months where I couldn't get one chicken bone. Right. Like I couldn't get like the body for make soup. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's stuff like that where you're like, oh wait, this is not like, you think you're like invincible for a while until you're not. You know what I mean?
Until some lifelines get cut there.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, what are we gonna do? You know,
that was a good reality check for us again to just like restable. Like, okay, what is the foundation? Like, and I was not against tourism. Like that was my first industry running into, but I was like, it's not a cream of the crop. It's like the cherry side bonus that we can get out of to still survive in the world. But then our foundation should be ag. I know everybody don't like be farmers, but we had even proved during that time, during the Iliahi trade and stuff, we were still feeding the Pacific Rim. There's logs of how much food was coming out of this place from sweet potato, kalo, ulus, you know, like we was feeding a lot of people and ourselves at one time. Now, how much food is actually even going out from Hawaii? Like, we're not even using our aina to its, not even 25% right now. Oh yeah, we're probably using them close. At 10%, 5%, you know, like.
Well, that, and then also like the way it was done before versus like plantation was so much more like long-term sustainable, right? Even in the mainland, there's kind of gnarly facts, right? We got, I think it's only 15 or 20 years left of like usable topsoil for like actual ag farming.
What?
No, it's gnarly.
Yeah.
When you go into like the
the
monoculture ag stuff, like there's not that much years left of like actual growability in the same style in which they're growing now. That's why you get so much guys looking at like migration patterns of buffalo, this kind of thing, like how that was broken up by fences. And that used to be how the you know, they would crap like freaking, they'd go from Texas to freaking like North Dakota back and forth and migrate. And then they would like bring a whole bunch of other animals that follow them based on the weather. And that would like till the soil, and the manure would get mixed in. And there's all kinds of different things that would happen naturally that because of like fences and cities and highways, that kind of stuff all got kind of disrupted, right? So the thing I liked about, and the more I learn about even now with like Hawaiian stuff, it was very much like the Western mentality is like make it happen, whatever it takes, right? And then you get like these really good results for a little while. Yeah. But then
short sprints.
Exactly. But then it doesn't last because you essentially exhaust your resource, right? All the organisms in the ground, all the organisms in the water itself, all those kind of things, you kind of bust it up so bad to the point, no return, right? That's like the Dust Bowl and different stuff in the Depression era. But then you look at the Hawaiians, they are very, like, they still, like, manipulated stuff. But they did it in a way that was, like sustainable, healthful, like, noticing what works good, what stuff wasn't too much, in what place they should put something. So all these kind of things was super.
I like to teach the kids. They knew how to amplify Mother Nature's
Yep.
goods already. Like she had a X amount, and they saw what she was doing, and it just boomed it up. Like
No,
it just
100%.
overflowed the umeke. Like you get that umeke bowl, instead of having to dig inside every time, they kept adding to it, so it overflowed, and it kept giving for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Now getting that back. And the fish pond was one of that it kind of put people's mind frames in to kind of look at. Because even within the past 100 years of data on fish ponds, it was presented wrong, or like because it was more looked at I would say just wrong. They was trying to live off of them, and finding the economic value over like its traditional function.
Yeah.
So like looking at fish pond, like, oh, we're gonna grow in this 39-acre fish pond. How much big fish we can grow? How much pounds per acre per year we can grow out of this fish pond, and that can put one number on there, on economic value number, so that we can figure out how to keep this going. But a lot of the places around Ora Pai'aina who tried to make one business off of that stuff, it all failed because that is not what the function of the fish pond was for. So if we reverse that back and then we try to match what we've been doing with the fish pond community, just being able to see restoration efforts, and everybody's on different levels, but to see the data come back, like, oh yeah, baby fish are coming now, like, oh, the fresh water is getting cleared up and mixing, and salinity and phytoplankton bloom, vaimomona, like all these other stuffs, and then also diving into Olelo Hawaii stuffs and trying to translate and see anything and everything to do with fish ponds or fisheries or ahupua'as or rivers, and just kind of start connecting dots from there, and then things that is like within the past 100 years, like, okay, so when I first started fish ponds, it was like looking, okay, how much pounds per acre per year, how much fish we can get out of this. But then now that we're going more, I was like, man, this doesn't make sense, because fish ponds are meant to grow herbivore fishes, and we're growing mullets in here. It grows a lot of different fishes, but mullets in the Ulsters, you'll see, is one of the most popular avas. It depends on the place.
What you mean, ava fish?
Yeah, the ava
Okay,
fish, yeah. So they grow like 6 feet big, like they can feed some masses. The
What,
avas,
mullet?
The avas.
Oh,
the mullets
oh,
may be like 5 feet, 4 feet.
Oh,
Big mama.
Back in the day kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But we can reach there again. But now instead of looking at growing on big fish inside there, because traditionally you'll see a lot of the repetition saying it, our fish pond system is self-feeding, self-recruiting. If you have 10,000 mullets inside here and they start grazing already on limu because they're vegetarians, like how quickly they're going to eat the whole 39 acres worth of ground inside a fish pond before they start getting hungry. It's like probably a week they're going to puka that whole place. So it's like, now you got to get something for keep that fish alive. So it's not matching the management system that we was hearing about. So now now we're diving deeper into the water. For us, at least growing up, any green water is what? Good or bad?
green water?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go in there.
Yeah. We're thinking like
Yeah.
secret of the ooze, bad kind of
Yeah,
stuff, like, but now studying them through and like more microscopic lens, like, oh, we had one word for that green water. It's called vaimomona, sweet water. So certain kind of green water that is actually good green water, which would be around our fish pond and river areas, because bloom that feed the filter feeders. So that's like the microscopic level of the start of the food chain. Feed all our filter feeders, all our babies, our oysters, whatever. And then as the babies start growing, then you're going to start splitting the omnivores, the carnivores, the herbivores. But if you're looking at the fish pond in that level, now you can kind of put together the puzzle pieces and look at, it's not meant to grow big. It's going to grow big fish, but not meant to focus on big fish, but it's meant to kind of incubate more babies. The more babies you get, it a whole different function of the fish pond. I don't know. Did the boys even talk to you guys about that?
We talked. We were with Chris, right? So Chris was part of the program, but he kind of talked to a bunch of that. Like, it was real interesting, right? He was talking about how like then it moves like the pelagics closer in, like as you get like.
So he kind of broke it down.
Yeah. So how how exactly what you said. The function of the fish pond isn't specifically only in the fish pond, right? The fish pond is this like thing that echoes outwards and like creates like in the fish pond, but then as you go out, like now you'll have like ahi stuff come closer inshore. You have more stuff in the bay, right? Like way more like
Bigger fish.
And
I was tripping when they was telling us that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too because you hear all those like Hukilau stories, stuff. I mean, because I grew up in Wailua, but so like people talk about going in the bay and like doing this whole thing, and you're like, I don't know, I've been fish over there, I don't get nothing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's just a different. It's interesting because it's hard to imagine. Like and that's why we get all interested in looking at pictures and like old stuff and reading about stuff. It's like, oh, what was it like? You know, like when healthy ecosystem and kind of how I was talking earlier, that technology of the fish pond is pretty interesting because it was kind of genius, right? It wasn't so small-minded where you're looking at one tiny spot on the map and like that's where we get our money or our food or our value. You know, it was like this thing was helped to, like you said, amplify the whole ecosystem and cause things to be from like all over, all the way out to the ocean to be more plentiful in general.
Yeah. And going back to the Ahupua'a system too, yeah. Because they get different learnings too. Like everybody like, oh yeah, you're in your Ahupua'a system, you gotta take care of your system money, don't go into other people's one. But I think some is a little bit misinterpreted because I think like everybody had ohana in different ahupuas. Yep. And it wasn't just like, oh, my ahupua'a this. Like, if you malama everything down from the top all the way down and start amplifying resources all the way out, ultimately all of us can amplify the kai. Mm-hmm. When the kai is amplified, that's all of our icebox. Yeah. And that, back in the day, is like, that should be on free for it. You can go to there, Iggy said the icebox, nobody should be starving on this island. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just go and malama and make sure the kind. But you get different people who get kuleana all the way through. Like after us, the fish pond, the next guys is the limu guys. Mm-hmm. The next guys from the limu guys is the near shore guys, the ko'a guys, and then the deep sea guys. And then that's where the lawai'a started thinking, it's not just that art form, but was that privilege. Mm-hmm. And because they break down lawai'a lava ka'i'a, like you have enough or bountiful of fish to be able to just
what that mean?
Go get
lava ka'i'a.
Lawai'a is basically like fishermen. Mm-hmm. But then when you break them down, lava means like to have enough of, or like or to stop. But then also lava is like lava enough. I get enough, and then i'a is fish. So lawai'a
okay.
is kind of the two words put together. It's kind of the way I break them down, but then it comes more of an art form when that kai is bountiful, like everybody is on lawai'a. Anybody can go there and fish. And then breaking down the word i'a is anything that grows in the water too. Some people just put i'a as any fish that swim, but I get one. I always stick to one of the Hawaiian riddles, like back before. It's a story called Kalapana, like the song, but the boy's name is Kalapana, but he was a good master riddler kind, or he became a better riddler, but they used to have those kind of battles, word battles, and used to play for each other's lives or whatever, but
isn't that so?
Yeah. And it's just all by words, and everybody used to have a whole, like audience watching, but within one of the riddles, not specifically to that story, but one of the riddles was Ku'uwahi a oki ke po'o, a oki ka hi'u, a ola ke kino. My beloved fish, I can cut off its head, can cut off its tail, but its body will still grow. What is it? What kind of fish you guys know? You can cut off its head, cut off its tail, but its body will still grow.
Eel.
A what?
I'm thinking eel, but I don't know if that's on fish, but
what is eel? What you was thinking of was an eel.
Oh, just like the eel, like the...
Oh, the eel.
Mori.
Would its body, if you cut off its head and its tail, will its body still grow?
No, he just move.
Good one out, but yeah, that's not that.
But that's wrong.
There's one of my
Brandon, your turn.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't know either.
No. And the side hint is, the hint was that anything that grows in the water is considered an i'a within a Hawaiian lens.
Is it a plant? Yeah.
So, what kind of plant you cut off its tail, cut off its head, and the body you still can grow. That grows in water.
Grows in water.
In the ocean, specifically.
No.
Oh, kalo.
Water. No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. Redemption.
Yeah. No, see, like that was cool, like those guys. So just for get a glimpse of their mind, their lens, of like, hey, anything limu is a type of i'a. Shrimp is i'a. Honu is i'a. Shark from a fish, like i'a is anything like aquaculture.
Okay.
Pa'akai is considered, like, so it's like just looking at that realm, and then why did I get on this subject? Sorry. It's like,
Oh no, I mean we were just talking about like how everything was connected,
Yeah.
like how that, and then how the story of that, you know, just like how, yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't like we tend, or I mean, the new thought, or like especially like Western thought, I think in the United States is very much, and maybe it's just the United States, Europe a little bit different, but the thought, like everything's so singular, right? Like even like medicine, we try to fix one cough or we try to fix one thing, but realistically, there's a whole system of things going on in you, and just because you'd fix one part doesn't mean you fix. It just your symptom of that is gone, but you still have the original symptom that never got fixed.
the difference between treating and curing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and the more you get into stuff, the more you realize it's like, the more you realize it's everything is bigger than you think and more complex. Like when you do an action, there's so much more consequence, good or bad. You know, so like I went to culinary school in California, and then that was in Napa Valley, and you get like all these different wineries, and then you get some that is like, you know, even just from like irrigation, like watering, like, and then there's other guys who don't, right? And they just want to go permaculture, biodynamic, whatever, and you can just like be 2 feet apart, and you can see a whole different quality in soil because one guy right next to the other guy is doing this, and just those little things of like understanding that things start on the microscopic level, and they're not just like, oh, I need potassium, oh, I need nitrogen. Like, yeah, you do, but those things are products of the microcosm going on in the thing, you know, and very similar. That's kind of like how it is here, you know, and that like Hawaii is such a rich place. That's why all these like other places, these like foreign things do so good, right? They do better than wherever they came from, because what we have here from a level and even like non-predator kind of thing is so much bigger. You know, it creates such a better environment for things to grow that it's like, oh, they just go off when you bring them from wherever they came from. You're like, oh, this wasn't that, like when albizia in Africa is not the same as when albizia in Southside. You know what I mean? Like it's just totally different. Like the water level, the soil, the year-round growth, everything is like so different that it's like, oh, Hawaii has this thing, you know, but those things are like kind of exploiting the ground, exploiting the water system, exploiting all the other things where it's like taking too much, right? And that's kind of like a, you know, whatever culture you come from, there's always these like words of wisdom where it talks about like, you know, there's something in like gluttony that's bad, you know, where it's just taking too much, where you're consuming too much. Because I mean, really, what you need is not that much, you know, and that's where I think people and everybody, and me too, gotta kind of like sometimes you just gotta wake up, you know, and be like, oh wait, like chill out, man. Like, do you need that? No, not really. Why are you taking it? You know.
Oh yeah, I like how you talked about that little part, because that's what through fish pond realm, we start from the microscopic run at phytoplankton, zooplankton bloom. You get the right fresh water, clean fresh water. You get the right salt water, and then when they combine, you just get that. So you get vai, fresh water, kai, salt water. When they mix, and it's like the hot road, you know, you blurry, you see the underwater. And it's the vai kai, that brackish water. But then when you get the right nutrients coming off the land to feed that, or to be in that space, then it starts feeding that bloom to happen. And then that bloom is the start. If you go on land, then you start looking at the indigenous microorganisms. So like that is the Mauka Makai version. Like our kupuna already went, like could see patterns from the land and in the ocean. Something connects. I think that microscopic level in the water is the same microscopic level on land that starts the rest of the growth process.
Mental. And
you only need a little bit of them for start amplifying what Mother Nature is already doing.
Yep.
And like just little, what is that called? Techniques like building one wall around the water system for slow that brackish water down so that now more bigger space can have that. So that's why when people come down to the fish pond, kind of start in that realm. But it's based off of today's modern problems. So like we talk about like sitting in these DAR meetings. You guys heard about that 30 by 30 initiative stuff? They're trying to like
No, try explain them.
like they're trying to couple off places or look for places that could stop fishing at so that can boost up population again.
Yeah.
But then there's kind of pinpointing where the negative problems was coming from. And then one of the big negatives was overfishing. Yeah, but if you look at the top three, they they had was like global warming, pollution, and then overfishing. Overfishing could be people, and then could also be invasive species. Yeah, an invasive species growing, they eating every day, but then also people attacking them too. So out of all the topics, I'm going to focus on the overfishing, guys, and then saying, okay, if we stop fishing in this area, then the population, the fish population should come back. So for me, I just listen, like, okay, I like see the data too. Like, first of all, what was the population in this space if you're going to stop people's lives from fishing or whatever? And I've seen a lot of the people, almost 400 people at one of the meetings. And anyway, not like big commercial fishermen, you know, just swiping. But so like, if you're going to change their lifestyle to boost population, which is still a positive, like what is the backup data? But no more really one, like, okay, in this area, supposed to be X amount of fishes of these species. So if we stop this, we should hit that number. Yeah, and then the second part was like, so if we were to stop, like, when do we say we hit our goal and then everybody can come back in and start doing a certain management way of harvesting? It's like the honu. Yeah, the honu and put a couple on top now. Get choke honu all over, but I don't see that couple lifting. And talk to all the old timers. That was one of the best seafood out there. My grandpa was one of the harvesters to the restaurants. They used to give it to sell them to restaurants, and restaurants were serving them to the tourists at one time.
Yeah.
So, but like repeat on other stuff like that. And then also, I noticed they're kind of using our data, like our oral data, like stories, Mo'olelo saying like, hey, no, if you look at every island, pretty much every bay, they talk about the ocean bubbling with fish. So I was like, okay, but I think it's a little bit misinterpreted that, because if you're going to use that kind of Mo'olelo, I can scan my own Mo'olelo, and I remember my tutu wahine talking about seeing bubbles of fish in the ocean, like gray shadow balls. Yeah, you go to any, like I talked to countless kupuna on every island almost, and they would talk about, when we were small, I could see the shadow ball. But then one more too, I also remember my tutu talking about when she was smaller with her tutu man, she remember him talking about used to be more big when he was a little kid. Yeah. So if we were to take that oral data and say, like, he saw this much, she saw this much, and we see what we see today. So you're on that gradual decline. So that is one data point right there. Okay. And if I would count the years between our eyes to my tutu wahine to her tutu man, I would say it's about 150 years. So how long is the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom this year? About 130. So this is 20 years past the overthrow. So, but at least looking at the data, we see the decrease of the wild fish population. So I tell them, what also I look at too with that question was not the negative factors bringing the wild fish population down, but what used to keep the population up before. Because what is one big activity everybody used to do before that would help feed the village? You guys kind of mentioned them earlier. The hukilau, yeah. So like every island get their story about the hukilau. Even Waimea River Mouth, they used to do hukilau. I was like, man, when I look at it, like, man, you just do hukilau at this spot. But hey, the mo'olelos is there. So I look at like, okay, if they were doing hukilau that consistent, what had happened that now if we do hukilau our days now, like as consistent as they did before, we would get categorized under overfishing. So like what had happened there, where that puzzle piece there. So I leave that problem there, and then I bring everybody back to fish ponds, and then had the oral data from my tutu guys, and then, okay, so we go fish ponds. Because most times I do that oral data part, and I like people check their own oral data too, so that you know that I'm not BSing. And you can connect back to your kupuna if you was raised up in here, at least within the past 50 years. Somebody going to share one story with you. So, okay, good. You guys can attach to what we're looking at right now. Then now we look at fish ponds. Then we kind of break fish ponds down more, because now you got to understand fish ponds is on big blanket, and fish ponds, local EO were just thrown over anything pond. Yeah, but you on whole matrix of them too. Like, to understand your types of fish ponds, you got to understand your salinity first. You get fresh water, you get brackish water, you get salt water. When you understand those three, then out of the three salinities, brackish water is your best, your most productive water you could get. If you get the other two, then you can still be productive, but not going to be as productive as this middle one. Once you get your salinity, you're going to know what kind of function you get of fish pond. We're going to have fish traps, fish pens, and fish ponds. Right now, they all kind of categorized in one. But fish traps is, you can have freshwater fish traps and saltwater fish traps. But they only set up when you need them, yeah. And fish pens is like, you know that little pond when you guys came into the fish pond? That little one on the right? That is considered like on fish pen. It's on holding pen, get enough nutrients inside for keep fish alive, but not enough for grow on baby all the way to adult. But more like on live ice box. So back in the day, if one ali'i come in and you know what kind of favorite fish they like, you get a chance for catch them and put them in an ice box and alive so that when they come, you can earn the brownie points more easy instead of testing your skill with fishing 50-50 chance of getting, So that is kind of like one of the functions, whether it be holding turtle, holding certain fish, like that is the kind like you can mahele to the ali'i coming so that you get their good tax or grease or whatever. And then you get fish ponds. You get on good brackish water system, you get on fish ponds, self-feeding, self-recruiting. So you understand your salinity, you understand what kind of function you can have, and then you get different styles of fish ponds. So like depending where stay from upland, from the freshwater areas all the way down into the ocean. So you get like freshwater fish ponds, or you get taro patch fish ponds. So you growing taro and fish at the same time, which was kind of like Mana. Mana was hardly talked about, but Mana was known for its floating lo'is. I don't know if you guys heard that before, like I think Aztecs used to do that. Plenty other big civilizations around the world used to do that, but we had that in Mana, where it was too deep to plant kalo, but also it was brackish water. But what happens when brackish water cruises together long enough and it starts to separate what goes up and what goes down?
Mud.
No.
The water.
Like,
That's fresh salt.
I forget which one is on top. Fresh is low, yeah?
No,
No,
actually.
on top, cold.
Yeah, fresh water will rise, salt water will sink. Salt water a little bit more
Okay.
dense. So however they figure that one out without one salinity tester, they end up building rafts, floating rafts. They put the soil on the rafts and they plant the kalo on that soil so that the roots touch that top water, freshwater lands while still growing brackish water fish on the bottom. So now there's amplified food resources in one spot, growing food on that floating area and still being able to harvest brackish water food on the bottom.
Wow.
So it's like that's what Mana is known for. Instead of doing what we're doing now, we can quadruple food productivity into feeding space. But that's just an example of type of fish ponds. Yeah. And then you get it all depends on what you're building your fish pond out of. So we get Kuapa style fish ponds is one of the most popular. You'll see the rock walls at the shorelines at shorelines. And then some spots, usually when no more one river or stream or spring super close by feeding that fish pond, it looks like on Kuapa style, but it's on saltwater fish trap. So get enough fresh water for call fishing, but not enough for make choke food.
Yeah.
So then they're still using that space to harvest. Get certain reefs, like on Maui and Kihei, like on the high tide, you cannot see the outer rim of the reef, but once the tide go down, the rim pop up and now whatever's stuck inside, and then it only has one way to go out. So it's another harvesting technique. Like crazy, and then get rock kinds. So all these different styles of fish ponds that we only look for granted, or like they call alkaline ponds, or where they would grow only just shrimp inside, but that was like opaiula ponds, like they would malama that so that they could get the opaiula out of that, like all different.
They had that out like west side, right? Like Hulēia, like further out that way. Yeah.
There's stories of those. Yeah, Big Island have strokes too. Yeah, Maui. So it's like all those things are considered fish ponds. Just kind of, but way more different function and different style. When you understand that, we're going to focus on brackish water, fish ponds, and then ours going to be Kuapa style fish pond. But instead of looking at the past 100 years worth of growing big fish inside there, now we're going to look at how to focus on the smaller fish and then connect it back up to the ahupua'a and back down too. So then you see the function of fish pond in general. But we're going to start off with the brackish water bloom, the vaimomona, that's sweet waters. So that can feed all the baby fish. So wherever you get on fish pond, so like if we're looking at Alekoko Fishpond, it's about 39 acres. Right above on the top part of the fish pond, get one little area where is old Grove. It's about 200 years old at the least because we found an 1800s report, one of our board members, using that as a survey at the Grove. But I believe that our kupuna, our Mother Nature is doing that somewhere in that space before, and then the kupuna will look at them and then just make them bigger. So in that back is about 1 acre. You come right down at the base of the spring. The salt water always coming up there, the breeze always blowing up there, but it's nice and calm. So you get that brackish water mixture, whatever nutrients coming down, create that bloom. So as they kilo, or they absorbing that space, they see that, all the babies attracting to this one spot, the Vaimomona, that sweet waters, the babies like this. So whatever calculation they did, they decided for build that wall all the way down where it's staying now, and growing Mother Nature's 1 acre now into 39 acres. So you say, like, Mother Nature, we put a number on them. Mother Nature was attracting about 10,000 baby pua every season. 10,000, we know what 10,000 look like because we caught 10,000 pua baby fish in a small area at the fish pond. Fill up on 55-gallon drum to the brim. So I say, okay, that's a good count for 1 acre plot just for put, and we know what that looked like. And then now, we're going to amplify them to the Vaimomona, that sweet water is now into 39 acres. Raising Mother Nature's 10,000 count from 10,000 now. We're just throwing out a number, 1 million babies inside there. So now that 1 million babies is not saying that we're going to grow 1 million babies inside the pond, but it can feed 1 million babies every time. That Vaimomona is one thing good where as long as everything is balanced, they can eat all they like that first day, but through the night going to rebuild itself and going to be still there.
Wow.
The icebox going to be always full. If you're looking at seaweed and you're trying to match the bigger fish to them, once that big fish eat all that seaweed out, then you cannot really boom that seaweed back up. Yeah, so it's like makes sense to grow big fish only in there. So we're looking at the babies. And then our gates, so you look at the gates called makaha. The gates are wide enough where babies can swim in and out. So we no more control of holding the babies back. But when you start compiling up plenty babies in one area, they give off one sweetness smell too, and now the predators come. So now those gates come into a function of holding the predators back from jumping in the easy bucket. The barracudas, the papillos, whatever predator fish can eat that. And then some of the big fish that is inside the pond already. But we still no more control the babies. So if we were to split that number, 1 million, 500,000 gets out of the fish pond. Once they cross that fish pond wall, we have no control off of that. So what do their babies become? Basically in the wild.
Bigger
Food.
fish.
Bait fish,
Bait
food. So anything outside going to start eating. When I first started fish ponds, there was a survey that said 288 fish ponds was surveyed throughout all the islands that could be chance to be restored. In the middle of COVID, I think another survey came out, 488. Personally, I believe had over thousands because a lot of the foundations of fish ponds got demolished or sabotaged before the surveys even reached them. But we'll play with the smallest number, 288. So we're looking at 288 fish ponds now as incubators, releasing 500,000 babies every season. So 500,000 times 288. And you see that going out. We're going to stop right there. We look back at Hukilau. Hukilau, name a couple of fishes, popular fishes that you would catch in Hukilau. Have you guys participated in Hukilau?
I never did.
Oh, no. Okay, so most of the stories, like when I participated in a couple, you'll hear akule or mallet, depending on how close to the stuff. But akule is one of the most popular. So if you break down akule, and you look what kind of eaters is akule, what they're eating. They're omnivore, carnivore, herbivore. Most times they kind of more to the
Carnivore, yeah?
carnivore,
Yeah.
yeah. But a lot of the carnivores.
I'm scared for say the wrong answer.
No.
I know.
I think it's carnivore.
I just shoot.
But then, one thing good when you get to the Leviathan realm, like there's a lot of stories of our kupuna turning carnivores into omnivores, like feeding sharks ulu, or like feeding any kind of carnivore. Like now, opelu they used to catch them with opai ula back in the day, but now you can hardly get opai ula, so now they get pumpkin, all those different kinds of starches to attract them. So you can hanai one carnivore into an omnivore, but that takes time and generations. But at least looking at the function, akule, carnivore. So now if you look back to the function of the fish pond and they're releasing these bait fish out into the ocean, the near shoreline, like they're just going to be loaded, yeah? Now that's something to attract those pelagics, those carnivores closer into the shoreline, which would make hukilau more easy again.
Yeah.
You know? So like putting those puzzle pieces into play. And then I go back to the kind 1 million. You guys been to the fish pond, 39 acres. You think 1 million babies, high count, low count, mid count. You think you could see 1 million babies who are swimming in that pond? What you think?
It'd be a lot. I mean,
High count, middle count for that 39 acres or low count?
Maybe
a
middle count.
Middle count, low count. See? So yeah, so you guys ate mullet before?
Yeah.
So you're looking at mullets, get different sizes, they're different phases. They're the hua, the pua, the aka, pua ama, kahaha, ama, anais. So the anais is what you're trying to go for. That's the big mamas. Any guess about how much eggs one mama anai can hold?
1 million.
1 million. Yeah.
1 million.
500,000 to 2 million eggs per mama. So the count we're playing with the 1 million inside the 39 acres is only off of one fish.
Holy shit, that's a very small count.
So we had 10,000 fish. You half that 10,000, half is Kane, half Wahine, times 500,000, times 288. We're looking at trillions of babies being released into the ocean as a puzzle piece to match wild fish population decreasing. Yeah. And that's just one piece of connecting to carnivores. Purposely feeding bait fish out into the ocean to attract carnivores, omnivores, and then later on, whatever no get eaten is the rest of the herbivores. Yeah. And then the limu guys come into play to make sure the limu grounds are full enough, one, to consume, but also to feed all those herbivores and keep that population up. And the Vaimomona feeds all the shellfish to like the oysters, the clams, those are the realms too. So it's like all those puzzle pieces. But then we look at that Vaimomona, that sweet waters. How do we continue the sweet waters? We got to look to the guys above us. It's like the terraformers.
Yeah.
Before learning about ahupuasis, I'm like, oh yeah, we need the fresh water from the mountain, go into the terraformers, they go down in the river, go into the fish pond, and go down into the ocean. But what is the purpose of having that water there? The taro, when you, in the lo'ikalo, the kalo farmers, if they're pumping their soils good with the right stuff, that nutrients get into the water, certain blooms in the water eat certain nutrients, and we got the one, I guess at the pond, sorry, I go reverse back. Kauai High School has been doing a science project with 3 girls, juniors, 3 boys, freshmen, and they went to states and stuff. They went pretty high, but the girls went find 2,000 different types of phytoplankton in the water. So now we got to pinpoint which one is the good one, the boys went find different types of fish, and akule was one of their higher numbers of the kind. So they're still swimming in that space. But we can find a fish or a mullet, catch one mullet, look into the gut content, see what kind bloom they're actually eating, focus on that bloom, see which nutrients bloom that would come from one taro patch. So that bloom got to just keep coming, so now we get a microscopic realm building up this bloom for keep that bloom going, to keep that outside going. Just slowly put it together, the puzzle piece. We never reached the mountain yet either, and how this circulation, the water, and the water manipulation they do too. Like Maui, how they brought the forest down to send water clouds to Kaho'olawe. I believe we did the same thing here from Mana'a side down, sending clouds to Ni'ihau, hopefully filling up Pu'uvai, Molokai talk about stories making big water drops inside one of their areas. It's like, you guys was master water manipulators.
Well, that's crazy, yeah.
That's wild.
I never heard of that, actually.
Sorry, I was just crunching a lot of stuff into
No,
real
that's
quick
sick.
thing.
It's
but
cool. Like, I mean, because that's the kind of thing, it's interesting, is like, if you really understand it and pay attention, then you can do some, like, crazy stuff, right? Like, but you're not really...
It's not going to happen like that, but you can get pieces into play. Like,
but like how you said, right? That, like, it goes and then, like, the water flows through the kalo stuff, and, like, that can be, like, filters, and then also, like, help benefit certain kind of plankton. And then, like, it's just interesting how connected everything is, and how you need to keep that, like, string alive from top to bottom.
How they figured that out with not one microscope. I'm tasting, seeing, talking, feeling.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, just to, like, because, I mean, guys are kind of, well, you're there every day, right? I mean, even you're there every day. So your understanding of that zone is so much more deep than me, who would, like, see it every once in a while, And then now you do generations of that. Yeah.
Where do you guys
right in here.
Oh, right there.
Right there. Holoi lima. Chigi holoi lima, okay? Flush the toilet. Put up the toilet seat.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. But like, then you say, oh, like they've kind of figured out like how to create that scenario where you can like work with the rain, which you're like, oh wait, I guess you could, right? Like if you figure out like how do you do everything, you're like, oh, there's ways, you know. And then you think of an island like Niihau, right? And you're like, oh, there's no water there. So it's like, oh, but you could, you know, or like Maui off of the kind, you know what I mean? And Molokai off Maui, you know, you're like, oh, that's kind of a trip.
The hills on Big Island, it's like between Kona and, I don't know, shucks. Sorry, Big Island people. Hawaii Island. I was born there, but the kind. We went to and farm on the hill, but they're talking about how they grew the uala, with catching the mountain, the morning dew with the sugar cane, and the wind would blow and then splash the water. So like on sprinkler, on morning sprinkler.
Wow.
I was like, what the heck? And they had on Wama uala, they 2 big ualas that I was like, what? He's like, this is one of our. Like, we wouldn't eat this one, it's too big, but usually we harvest so smaller. But just for sure how big they can get.
Well, that's an interesting thing, too, yeah, is like makahiki, right? Like, when they would, like, I mean, because it was almost like county fair, right? In some way, where you bring, like, your stuff, but then you kind of also discuss, like, growing and, like, observations. And that would kind of, like, spread out all the info to everybody.
Help level up everybody.
Yeah.
Like nowadays we use the sports as the candy. I forget people to know about makahiki, but yeah, the goal is to dive deeper in, because especially when out of the other projects we work at Kaniolauma down by Brennickys. Get the space over there, but that was like a taro patch, a fish pond, and then get on whole makahiki field area.
Yeah.
But there's also a platform where they measured food. So that in itself was a competition within makahiki. It was,
Well, right by the beach?
on the Mauka side of the road. But that the fish pond went all the way to the old map showing how it used to be with all one big fish pond where you could paddle them in from the ocean.
Wow.
But in Iki time, they push, I think Eva too, they push Chokopala underneath there and build the parking lot.
Yeah.
But we get old maps of how it used to look before over there.
Oh, yeah, there's that huge heiau too right there, huh?
Yeah. So, but like spots like that, just showing that they used to gather the farmers together to measure the biggest kalo, biggest ulu, biggest uala. So you get your bragging rights off of growing the best one, best tasting, whatever. But the main part after that was everybody sitting down at the table now and sharing their like how they got that way, so that everybody could take that now and then level up everybody and see who can get the biggest one now after that, and just keep growing. And because the main goal after that was to feed everybody, make sure everybody had food, make sure we could survive on the rock, because the seasons wasn't always the same exact season. Had drought season, had good season, so like making sure that can be the best we can in any element to still survive on this rock in the middle of the ocean. So it's like being just master manipulators or that master amplifiers. Okay?
100%. And that kind of stuff is, well, for me, from like food is interesting, right? Like, that's why I like what I said earlier, like, oh, Europe a little bit different, because they're like, in certain things, they're very specific. Like take one $1 billion industry like wine. Like they have different hillsides on the same exact like 100 yards from each other, and one will be worth all this and the other one won't, because this one gets X days of sun more than the other side, and this bank has this soil sediment and this. So I mean, they just focus a lot more and have that knowledge passed down over and over again to the point where it's like ingrained. I mean, to me, that was like the biggest part of, especially when like Westerns came in, like there was this disruption in like the knowledge part, where like, especially when like people weren't talking, right? Like that's when like you lose a lot of these like super in-depth info that probably took like how many years to figure out, and like how many different people like comparing and talking, and then like practicing, seeing what works, what doesn't, in what different spot and all that. But yeah, so I mean, that was the thing, is like, and the fact that you kind of like bring those things back is pretty amazing. You know what I mean? Like it takes time, but at the same time, it's like, oh, like there's ways of making things better. And like, I'm kind of weird. I'm like in the middle, right? I think things progress forward, but I also think like they need to be balanced. You cannot take too much. You have to like learn from the past for sure, but all those things, and then figure out like how does it apply to right now.
Even our fishermen realms, like, wasn't just a fish pond helping boom, but they also get the hanai sections that never have, what is that, for enough fresh waters to amplify the numbers. So they actually went out and purposely fed, and they would help build numbers physically by hand, you know. So all those different parts.
Oh, so it's super interesting because I mean, I guess it was all survival, right? So like it was ultra important.
It's fully survival, yeah.
Yeah, like you know, so people like this was like serious business kind.
And I'm like, oh, a lot of us still is like catch off guard shock. Is like, oh, wow, I can't believe you do that. Like, really? But you know, when you ask about the name of that cloud or the name of that rain and the name of that wind, it's like, you think you could get that on an empty stomach?
Yeah.
like to be so fine-tuned of all the different star lines and everything, like, dang, you have to be satisfied first to even get to that level to understand all your different winds, all your different rains,
100%.
name all your different plants and valleys and cracks. Like, so,
Well, that's the interesting thing too. Yeah, the level of like detail. Like I mean, on word like rain, right? Like how many different kinds are there?
yeah.
Where it's like they get very specific,
Yes,
and to even
specifically name 'em.
location, to size, to whatever.
And Kauai had, within the stories, the most wind and rain names out of all the islands. You know, like, around the whole thing. And then down into the North Islands, they still had. So I was like, wow. To remember that by just remembering, too, is another
That's
thing.
true, yeah. But that's one thing interesting too, like the specialty of everybody. Like we were talking about to Chucky Boy about like the bird catchers, and he's like, you know, those guys was a little bit weird. Like they live in the mountains by themselves. It kind of like isolated down, but they get so like in tune with the birds, right? Like they get so like almost becoming like one bird, you know, because they played that role in society. But their like knowledge of that whole thing was so detailed that like almost like, but all the different people's knowledge was probably like ultra detailed of their specific
I've heard
thing.
it there. Aina-based function.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's cool, man. Yeah. But try. So what do you guys want to do with? So you guys have cleared out. Like when we went, you guys, from what the pictures we've seen, the amount of mangrove you guys had clear out was kind of mega.
Yeah. So we, as of date today, we removed 26 acres of mangrove in that spot alone, and then just under 4 acres at the first spot. So we're about 30 acres gone of the 70-acre total. And then we're getting ready to move upstream to continue mangrove restoration removal with U.S. Fish and Wildlife right now, the next 15 acres, but also on site. We just got our permit, what is that called? Approved for the sediment removal. And then from the inside of the pond, what the mangrove built into it, because 3-4 feet under that mangrove mat is white sand. Yeah, so that whole place was on sandy beach.
Wow.
So
Which is kind of crazy if anybody's ever been to Kalapaki.
Yeah.
Like,
And if you look at the old pictures, you could see on the edges was all white sand all the way up. And then in the front side,
Must have been beautiful.
even way before the harbor, that whole area where Matson, Young Brothers stay, all the way to the park by the break wall,
that makes sense.
where people surf Kalapaki. Have you seen the pictures before all of that was built?
No.
That was a big bay on there. That's all backfill. So they dredged and backfilled. They built that rock wall, and they made the park all the way up to where that hotel stay, all the way down to the Matson, those big factory stuff. Budweiser around to that corner. Yeah, and I think there was one more fish pond right in that middle over there to where the other stream comes out. But yeah, things that just change up. But our next goal is to get down to that sand layer again, hopefully, and then rebuild the rock wall that separates the fish pond from the river, so that the salinity can get more stable. And yeah, in October, we're hoping to try to call out to 2,000 community members to help us build the rock wall. It's a short rock wall, but it's long. And it was more like a workshop, kind of. Everybody learned the different parts of the rock wall, little tips and techniques for Hawaiian dry setting. And for us, get a little bit more than just building it, finishing a rock wall, but also just being able to gather big movement like that. Because we talk about the stories a lot about how that place was built. But that story is 600 to 800 years old. We don't know the people who would even put their hands on the rocks into its whole lifetime. Yeah, but we still talk about them because they left their legacy within that wall. But this wall is almost died 600 to 800 years later during our time. So to be able to gather more people, gather many people in that space, which probably never was done since it was built, and then to put a pinpoint within our lifetime generation, our Keki's generation, to say like, oh, we came together with plenty of people to help save this wall, and now we can send them to the next 800 years. And now we get technology like this. Like, oh, we know the kupuna, they're going to be kupuna one day, like the kupuna that helped make that wall. Like we descend from them, and then they descended from the guys 800 years before them. And we keep that connection, we keep that protection. So now hopefully that place will never get overgrown again, and people can understand more of the function and just recreate that pilina. Not just Hawaiians, everybody living on the land. It's like, yeah, just making that community more proud of that movement and understanding. And is that one not going to change everything, but that one can be the start of rebuilding more. And then when together, we're going to be able to make bigger change.
No, I mean, for sure, yeah. It's like ownership.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad was like a councilman and like whatever, a mayor after. But before he was a councilman, he used to run the convention hall. But while he was there, they created this thing called like Holokai. Like, but basically every park in every neighborhood, the whole goal was to get the people of that neighborhood to go and like take care of the park, clean it, paint it, do all this. But the whole point is like ownership. The whole point is like you live there, like responsibility.
Take care.
You know, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. In the first beginning, was only me and my friends cleaning, but eventually, there were communities that all came together, and that just changes stuff, yeah. Because once that happens, now you see stuff happening there. It's not like, oh, it's the county's job to go like fix that. It becomes like, oh no, like we gotta fix this and like come together. It's these like kind of, and this was the big thing too, that when I was talking to Xavier and even other people, this idea that this can be this like very galvanizing thing that makes people come together as a community, right? We live in like kind of a weird like point where there's a lot of like disconnect, right? Whether it's like technology and phones and this, you just spend a lot less time like hanging out or like meeting like your neighbor, like the people literally living like next to or across from you. Whereas like back in the day, for better or worse, you knew them.
Everybody
you know what I
knew
mean?
each other, yeah.
You know, so but that creates this level of accountability, right? You're not gonna do all kind of stupid kind of stuff when all your neighbors know exactly who you are, right?
Yeah.
And in the same way, like you can go here and then it just makes people more like forgiving and like empathetic, I think, you know, because you worked with this person next to you. You've done these things next to you. And like, they put in the work too. They might not be perfect people. They might make mistakes, whatever. But you also know that like, oh, there's that time where we like did this thing, you know.
Everybody's, what is that called? Ranks or all kind of can leave them at the gate for that. Like, let's all come together for this. Like, let's agree on this one thing right now. And that we've seen that happen at AEF Fishpond. It's like, man, everybody came together. Like, and that vibe, just that whole place start vibing, and then people keep talking about it, and they come back just for like, come back and just feel them again. Like, oh, this really helped me a lot. Like, just being that community or being with other people.
Yeah,
it's like
100%.
we're just being with the land, or just seeing it happen, or seeing the little kids, or seeing the kupuna. It's like people connected all in different ways, and somebody had something for somebody there, not just the pohaku, but all that good mana going into the pohaku, and the pohaku just holding them and vibing, attracting more good.
Well, and not even just that day, yeah? Like we're there and like you see plants and you're like, oh, that's a plantation era plant. Oh, wait, that means like when somebody had planted that like on that hillside right there. Yeah. Oh, and this is like pre-plantation era stuff. So there's like years and years and years of different people like being there in that one spot, and that being like a super important spot, you know. And the same thing that it can still continue on.
I tell everybody too, like, hey, some of you might know, or we do our pico every time with whoever's there. Like, some of you might know that you descend from this place, or your families ate from this pond or this river or this land or hunted. Then if they passed on, you bringing them along whether you like it or not. But if you're the first one out of your ohana, you feel that is stepping foot in this place and adding your mana into this space, then 100 years from now, when your descendant come and call upon your Ohana name, they're going to bring you along whether you like it or not, or they like it or not. And that's how the Aina can remember all of that connections of those different times it went through. And everybody start connecting back, rooting, no matter who you are. And you remembers the good and the bad energy.
Yeah.
So it's like just being more conscious of that.
100%. And then when you guys was planning on doing this?
October 21st, third Saturday in October, that's going to mark our exact 5 years since we started community work days.
Nice.
It's been a big, quick move. We're trying to not scorpion ourselves, but yeah, 5 years in fly. And from coming from one lease, we had a 20-year lease to be in the fish pond to remove the mangrove. So in the middle of COVID, being able to own them. So now the nonprofit organization owns the fish pond. And we only had a plan to just clear the mangrove, stabilize the wall, and move on to the next project. But now it opened up to go into food restoration. So
That's
to be
awesome.
able to continue the mission, now go into food restoration, food production, and kind of educate on that is the greater goal now.
No, that's sick. Because the cool thing is, like, I mean, because like how you said, yeah, you just started with like removing mangrove. Like that was the original goal. And now like you're still removing, but at the same time now you have these other opportunities that popped up.
Yep.
Like it would be cool to see what kind of opportunities pop up in the future and what can happen, right? Like how you said that's like a beginning level of the whole thing, right? And like when we were there, everybody was talking about like, oh no, you go up more and there's this. You go up more and there's this. You're like, oh.
It's a little part of the bread basket. There's one more other. There's a sister fish pond across. That's different owners. There's the whole Taro Patch section where the bird sanctuary was, and like, which Brother Puno is Hanai to talk about. Those are like hundreds of little fish ponds. So it kind of makes sense, like Taro Patch fish pond kind, because the water touched there, and the way the Ahupua'a is kind of marked off, because no more one open ocean to that upper Ahupua'a. It's right into the river. So I was like, oh, they must have had good resources for not having open ocean. 'Cause right across them is Kipu already. So it's like,
Wow.
being able to understand the lay of the land and how it was named kind of helps resemble how it was functioning and how much it produced, like, in order to function. It's like crazy. We only at the tip of the nail right now.
Oh no, it'll be sick. That's the thing is I do think like it's kind of a good time. Like we talk to a lot of people through the podcast, but like so many people, like whether it's language, whether it's stories, whether it's actual physical, like all the different places, there's so much restoration of like Hawaiian culture, you know, and we talked about this before, but there's so much like people who don't know, like us, me included, you know, where you just don't, like nobody taught you nothing. Like, even if you're from here, even if you're, like, Hawaiian, like, you don't know. So it's, like, to see that many different people all over the place kind of moving parallel and then this whole thing coming together, it's pretty sick, you know? Where it's, like, oh, before it's just, like, I mean, we talked about it with other guys, but you kind of get, like, 1 year in 8th grade where you learn about, like, that's your Hawaiian class. And that's, like, everything. And you basically learn real quick the commitments, and that's, like, everything. And then the level of knowledge, the level of like understanding of like technology, of all these things that were learned over time that they've adapted to this place, like is pretty significant, you know, for those things to like bloom, be recorded, be able to like people to learn all over, I think it's pretty significant, you know, and pretty exciting, you know.
Totally. Yeah, that is like all part of the cultural bomb,
Yeah.
and control how much knowledge we can gain in there and erase the rest so that we start being good followers of whatever the system trying to provide. But
100%.
it's like these kipukas or these little archives that's slowly coming out and like, hey, take this and run, and like, okay, match it, and like, but having all your senses opening too, not just what you're reading, what you're doing, the spiritual side too. Is like, dang. And you sleep in a place long enough, and you feel the vibes, like, you know, like. But then, growing up, a lot of our Hawaiian stuff was, you know, at least more in our grandparents' era. It was like anything Hawaiian was witchcraft, or you know, can't do that. Like, you know, the religion part came super strong and killed a lot of the culture.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, anything black magic, anything this.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But now we look at it, we study them. Now it's like, man, this is just an hyper identifying of everything around us and our kupuno and nemo, man. It's like
Yeah.
not like they were glorifying one thing. It's like they're just pinpointing a name so they understood how to survive in this rocket the best we could. It was pretty awesome. Get some other stuff in there in the middle, but when it came down to just, I focus more on food systems.
Yeah.
So like Ahupua's system functioning that way. And like, yeah, it's a crazy matrix that it's like, wow. We don't even, a lot of the scientists is only catching up to these stuffs now.
100%. You know, and that's the thing. It's kind of interesting. Like, it's super, I don't want to say cutting edge because it's been around for so long, but like from what like modern like understanding of food systems, these things are what is becoming like, oh no, this is actually how it has to work across the world.
Going through the pendulum, man. It was like productive,
Yeah.
and then tried a new thing, and now we're down in the ground. Like, okay, let's look back a little bit. Now we got to bring them back up
Yeah.
to where it was.
Is that like industrial revolution? Yeah, where that had like kind of mess up almost the world, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
People cashed out, and now they realize everybody
Yeah.
else is left with the crumbs. And like, oh crap, we screwed up.
Yeah, and then they start. Yeah, you can only do that for so long.
I think we get a good chance of being an example. Get other places around the world seeing like, man, they're doing it too. It's like, and it's parallel kind of knowledge. Like, I got to sit in a interview during COVID with a guy from Coral Whistle. He focused on restoring their traditional salmon ways, and then they was asking me about traditional Hawaiian ways with Hawaiian striped mullet. So like, I had mullets, he had salmons, and we never met each other. We only seen each other on Zoom, and then as I was explaining, like to you guys, like the Vaimomona, the sweet waters. Oh yeah, in Hawaiian, call it Vaimomona. In English, like translate to sweet waters. And then I saw his head tilt like that. Is like waiting, like getting anxious to talk again too. So once I finished, then he jumped on. He's like, "Oh, I'm so happy, brother mentioned the sweet waters. In our language, we call it." And he said the word, his word for it, and same science breakdown. Like, that is the phytoplankton, zooplankton bloom that we have, but it's under the sea ice. When the sea ice starts to melt, then the phytoplankton bloom starts there, and that's the start of our food system as it goes to the salmon ways.
That's
so
sick.
it's the same thing, through the mullets, but there's it's under the sea ice, and it was like, see, we all knew this, the basic knowledge.
Yeah, no, 100%, right? And it's crazy because it's two polar opposite
Yeah,
kind of like climates, even.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that it's still like things work if you just like pay attention.
Yeah, pay
You
attention
know.
to your environment.
And then you kind of nurture it.
Not taking too much of other people's ideas and trying to just plop it here. It's like,
Yeah, or saying like, "Oh, this is great. Let's just make it here." Like, leave them. Like, I mean, there's like Hawaii, right? Like, one of the big things is pineapple. But then you get to the history of pineapple. Then you get to the history. Oh, it came from Africa. Oh, then it was the most expensive product in Europe. And then they learned to farm it in Europe. And then prices went down. And then now, if you had pineapples on your house, you were like ultra rich. You know, like there's a whole like history to like pineapple.
never dived that deep, but
Yeah. So I mean, it gets interesting, right? Like,
I always Kool-Aid it. Like, it's like, that's not Hawaiian fruit. Don't call a Hawaiian pizza with pineapple.
I tell you.
and Canadian bacon, yeah, the most. And the
Nothing
thing
to
junk.
do with
Sorry,
Hawaii.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, just all those kind of stuff. You're like, oh, you know, if things in France and stuff, they have that word like terroir, right? So like the idea is like the people, like whether it's culture, the community, and then the place. So like the climate, everything. Like you're growing everything that's supposed to be in the right place with the culture of the people. Like that's when you get these like really good products. So that's why like in certain parts of Italy and France, just the natural product is good, right? Because they've tried to figure out what grows best where and not try to just put whatever because I like eat that.
Yeah.
You know, like I like tomatoes, but I'm going to tell you, like the tomatoes I ate in Napa is way better than the tomatoes I ate in Hawaii. Like it just is. Like they grow really well in Hawaii, but the fruit for whatever, because it's harder. It's like they have days that are 100 degrees and nights drop all the way down to 40s in the summer. So like it just comes out better. Hawaii is just too good. You know, the vines grow good, but the fruit is like, all right. You know, and so why grow it here? Why not grow the things that's supposed to grow here?
Yeah, and that's the hard part too. Talking with some of our farmers are being inside some of those meetings is like the farmers are getting established in certain places, but they need the water. It's
Yeah.
like, man, if you study the land before, there's a lot of stuff that grew in these spaces because of its weather, and then you didn't have to irrigate water like so much besides Carlo, you
Yeah.
know. Like, but then I know we're gonna need some water here and there, but it's not like mass monocropping again like before. We get
Yeah.
other places that actually grew stuff so good that it brought water too to the space, you know, like.
There's water. I mean, and then there's you get into like, whether it's like different trees growing around it for shade, for different stuff and growing stuff under. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but it's super interesting.
But I know productively as a farmer, it's not the easiest way to harvest. And
Oh, no, 100%.
Quickly,
It's-
it's like
yeah, it's
natural.
way
You
harder.
so
You know.
productive level, time wise, like But
Yeah, it's always a tricky one for sure. But I think there's like lots of lessons to be learned, and like even just because it's not just even like food per se by itself. It's just the place itself is much healthier all around, and that's the thing. Even with that, like they're explaining the way they explained it when we were cruising up in Hawaiian is like, the loi are like they're kind of like the kidneys for the ocean. Like it filters through all this like runoff, all the rivers, all the streams, and then so when it finally gets to the ocean, you're gonna have a better ecosystem right over there too. So there's everything. There's a benefit from top to bottom of like why this is like this.
yeah, I look at when the kids come and share kind of like the three pico, like is understanding like our kupuna recognize that we have three pico, not just the one.
Yeah, the head.
Yeah, and the pico on the top. It's like the babies. Like I just thinking of my baby's one now because you can see the pulse beating there. But that connect you to the akua realm. You get the vaina connect you to the present, your parent, your mom, and then your genital areas connect you to the future. So the three picos that they recognize. And like when I place that on the land part, like with the Mauna Kea issue, and everybody's like, oh, come, because the top of the mountains are all sacred. If we're putting water as like for blood for us, but the water. So like once you contaminate out there, you're gonna contaminate everything else down. But keeping those spaces sacred. But when that water go down, if you attach it to the food systems, so we get that one matched with our head one, the pole one. What kind of food system would match to this? Our present one. When that water goes down.
Taro.
The taro, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you break that down, the hollow or the everlasting breath. We look at that as our sibling within the genealogy. So it's like that present here. And they also had, what is that? Some of the writers, talk about like the downfall of Kalo gonna be the downfall of the Hawaiians. That everlasting breath, breaking that link. But then after that water goes through there, it's gonna go down to the future one, and that one, look at how the fish pond function. It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
You're always gonna release that babies out. Some gonna come back, but then some are just gonna go out into the rest and figure out the kind. But that flow helps keep everything, that veins pumping through that water, and the three picos pretty much going to stay. If you keep those picos solid, one going to always affect the other, but they're going to help be productive. Kind of looking at that realm when using the aina point of view, like the kidneys. Yeah, it's got to flash. That flashing going to go to the next point and the next point. But kind of, you look at it on top of the land, like it's kind of like picos too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some parts shared so that get the people to dive a little bit more deep to Mālama, like see the land more in that realm versus
100%. No, thank you for sharing too. That's choke info in a good way. Yeah. That like honestly, most people, including myself, wouldn't like necessarily have access to per se, or without like going deep diving, So that's kind of our goal too. Is like let's get this out to people so they learn.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the people like all the people like you who kind of like this is your specialty. This is your like. What you've kind of, in my mind, where I see like dedicated a lot of your time. You probably know more about mangrove than most people, you know what I mean? And fish ponds, and like how, like those details that it takes to kind of do what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been a good chunk of time on it. What was it? Yeah, about 14 years now with mangrove. And we use it too, like to build traditional hales, fence posts, emu. So we still use the wood is actually good too, but the effects is not as good. So we study like, the guys where mangrove came from traditionally used to use them for their house as wood. So like, let's try use them too then. Yeah, and some good hard wood, But yeah, it takes a while, and it cracks in a different way. But yeah, we try not to make it fully wasted.
Yeah.
Grind them down, break them down, at least turn them up so that it can go back to the land and grow something else. But,
If you could see, like, what would be like your end vision if you saw? Just curious, like at the end, you know what I mean? Like you're old man, you bust your ass for how long? Tons of people heard what you said, whatever. Like you get workers come, different people help out, whatever. What would your goal be?
I'm hoping by the time I'm 100 years old, and even less than 100, but that a lot of the stuff we've been talking about with you guys comes true. Like being able to, because plenty of our people's are like, plenty of people living on Hawaii is finally getting to understand like the importance of certain things, and if we start keep building buildings, we're gonna be like on Waikiki, on Honolulu, and we're gonna build ourselves out of living in Hawaii. Like not because we can't afford them, it's because we literally not gonna be able to live off of our resources, and for fly things over and not be able to make the economy work with all these buildings. Not like I don't see things going that way, but we have to be able to find that balance and preserve what we need to. But it's not if it happens, it's when. When not a hurricane happened, when not a pandemic hit. Like we've been through so much already. Like COVID was just one added to the list with leprosy and smallpox and all these other stuff that every other place went through too. But so it's not if it happens, it's gonna be when. So like we can get our food systems in again, and when those lifelines get cut, the convenience get cut, we'll be like, it's okay, we can bounce. Like, easy, everything's rolling already. And seeing my great grandkids being able to not have to restore places anymore. They can actually feed, maintain, plant, and reconnect that chain. We can see them in our lifetime, that'll be solid. And I think we can because there's way more technology too now. Maybe this kind of reaching out to people. This is the modern day pool.
Well, people are down too, like brand, like me. We always see like there's this killer resurgence happening, and people just seem down. So it's so. You know what I mean? There's people like you who have done so much for the last, like you said, 5 years, even before that, to be into this kind of stuff. But for the people that we get to talk to and the guests that we've had on, it seems like they're super down and interested in coming together, whether it's putting this kind of information on platforms like this. We can all come together and help make this thing happen, like you said, in this lifetime.
Totally. Machines, I kind of got lazy within the past 10 years.
Like, pull that thing.
That's a nice excavator, I'm not going to lie.
That's a huge one.
I know, I was like, this thing is huge.
Chainsawing for a long time. We got it down to a science where 3 of us could clean 1,000 square foot of place. They would be considered productive, nice piles, getting ready for burn. Then the machine came in doing just under an acre. I was like, why are we even busting our butt?
Yeah.
I want to be able to run with my grandkids too. Not saw back everything because we was busted as carrying rocks and moving logs. But yeah, once we get to that point, then hopefully by the time they get to eat, we got to rebuild that ono back with our next generation too, because everybody only knows salmon and tuna. They think salmon grows here. It's like, come on. It's like, we get way more fish, way more varieties of seafood that we have just from this little rock that,
we was whacking invasives too, me and Kimmy. We freaking top is spicy poke.
Totally.
So those is gonna catch cracks.
To build those ono back into the younger generation so that they get more kuleana, more oomph, save places or like preserve places so that can keep eating that foods again. It's like one good one too. And then I had one more other thing, but it slipped. So, but yeah, I think we'll get the technology there. We get using the machines to get there faster. In COVID, we didn't have 2 years, a good chunk of Mangrove came out. We had less people come out because of COVID, but because the machines took over was one big opener for me because I did a lot of stuff by hand before I got to Mālama Hulēia. So to be able to see the drastic change, like, man, we get so much warriors in the construction business. It's like, they turn and huli systems up like this, but still can build structurally, but could change the architecture of them so that it's flowing with the land and not just booming in its one spot. We can be way more productive. Yeah, and then that little overlay of tourism will be way more controlled back to the people in the land instead of just to the big corporations.
Yeah. No, 100%. Because that's all kind of stuff too that's interesting is like the shift. Because even like tourists, yeah, like the old school was like this weird, like Brady Bunch, tropical, like fake hula Waikiki shit, right? And then now it's like people want to like go, like they won't, like, I mean, we maybe talk later or whatever, but like there's even ways of like how do you like educate tourists there, and then that helps fund like more restoration, more growth, you know, and different things like that, where I think there's a kind of people out there now who want to learn, respect, and help, even if they're not from here per se.
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift within the past, say, 8 to 10 years of people being more aware of coming to one space and looking for like community movement. As like guys call randomly, oh, how did you find us? Like, oh, I just Googled something and I looked for community. They're kind of like, oh, solid. Like those kind of tourists are like more, those are like the tropical plants, you know?
Yeah.
they like they go cool. And then you get the ones that just they're finding any kind of waterfall or dumping soap in the waterfalls and you're just causing ruckus.
Yeah.
Like, like flotillas and stuff.
Yeah.
Hopping off on a pool.
Okay. Yeah. Dumb stuff.
Yeah, so it's like that. Always gonna get that. I think we can eliminate it, but we could get it to a fine control, and then still be productive. But yeah.
So if people wanted to, for the people tuned in and watching, if they wanted to learn more about what you guys are doing and kind of more like follow your guys' journey, is there somewhere that they can go to, Instagram or a website? Yeah,
we have our website, maalamahulēia.org, and we have Instagram, and we have a Facebook, but I know more Facebook, so I'm not sure how that runs. But our ED runs that one. But yeah, I think those are our 3 outlets so far, or media places. And then you can come down to the fish pond. We host all kind of different groups, not just school groups.
So anybody can come down, and when is that?
Yeah. Usually they'll find us on our email, and then they'll email me, and then I send out a group info form because we get school groups lined up, and usually we try not to mix other groups with school groups because then just for protect the kids.
Yeah.
So like if people have a group or a family, we had that family reunion kind. They wanted to just come down and cocoa together because they know their genealogy stemmed within that valley, or one business that just wanted to do staff development kind of stuff and work together, and then meeting space. But I have a system where, what is that called? Bless you.
Thank you.
It's our group info form where they just draw out 3 dates, give basic information about their group, and then I look inside the calendar, follow from their first proposed date. If we block out, then second and go to the third. And usually we'll find a date it'll land in. And then there's hours, of which hours, like do our kind of custom the hours. So.
And Niho was saying that people in the community can come, what was it, the last Saturday?
Oh yeah, and then we have on the weekends, our 3rd Saturdays of the month is community work days. So then that too can see on our social media outlets or our email. Because we do have an email list you can jump on, and then it shoots out when the work days are coming up, or just a reminder that week. And then we like people to at least sign up. It's not a big sign up, just like literally your name and how much people coming with you, because we feed everybody lunch, and we just like make sure we get enough food for everybody. And it's from 8 to 12. Everybody join in, and then we do 3 basic rotations. Usually it's something to do with planting, something to do with restoration of the pond, and then something, a tour. So that everybody knows, what they're doing for.
Yeah.
It's kind of, be able to dive in and be more confident of what they'd put their sweat equity into. And then, more educational experience. And then the least we can do is provide food for everybody who would spend their time with us on that weekend.
Cool. Yeah, guys, for those of you tuned in and listening, if you guys are on Kauai for sure, check Peleke guys out. We got to go down there 2 or 3 times already. Super cool. Just to see what they're doing, and if you guys want to help out, all the support is appreciated. One more time, what is the date, Peleke, for the
October 21st.
October 21st. Guys, mark your guys' calendar and yeah, check them out on Instagram and just stay tuned. If you guys have any questions, you guys can reach out to us. We're happy to
Yep.
answer any questions.
Yeah. Send your checks. You can send them to them.
Yeah.
Hey, we gotta ask.
Pretty good moving mahalo, yeah.
Oh no, so guys want to send. You guys like
Yeah.
send them. You guys let me know. I give you my personal address. But no, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of How's This podcast. Brother Peleke, thank you so much for your time,
Mahalos,
guy.
Thank you.
All of you guys
We
for
know
having
you're a
me.
busy guy, ba. So
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
This won't be the last time you can come on. So I look forward to the next time, and yeah, we could talk story about all kind.
Awesome subjects you guys always stirring up. So.
Yeah.
Good fun. Right on.
All right, guys. Don't forget to check out past episodes. How's This podcast on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you want to support future episodes, check me out on howsdisguy.com patreon.com/howsdisguy. All right. Aloha.